That's right, people. If you're watching live, I don't have a hat on today. I feel, frankly, nude. And I realize that's foolish and not at all the case. But all I see when I look at myself is that colossal forehead. In any event, welcome to my perfect fantasy draft, volume 2. This is the second iteration of it because Yahoo just dropped a new board on us, meaning that the players we can get in the middle of each round have now changed. I've decided after looking at myself enough, I am going to put on a hat. So that's the end of that. You guys got to see my hair briefly, and that's the end of that chapter. Why do we do an exercise like this? Well, drafting at the turn has its own set of challenges. Drafting in the middle of a round is an opportunity to try to isolate players of value. So what we're doing in this show is we're looking generally, and as you get deeper in the draft, it's not as easy to go right in the middle. But these are guys that I think have a chance to beat ADP, a very good chance, that are available in the middle of each round of a fantasy draft. And basically, what this also does is it creates an actual possible outcome. Not that necessarily putting the pieces together that I'm going to give you, this is like some sort of perfect team. But if you got a lot of these guys, you should feel pretty good about the way that your draft is going. I'm Dan Bespris. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Welcome to the program as we kind of settle in a little bit here. Follow on Twitter at Dan Bespris, at Old Man Squad as well. I'll throw those a little bit bigger for the YouTube audience. Please hit the like button before we settle in. Think about dropping a comment. That's also very helpful. Follow on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram, Old Man Squad Fantasy. TikTok is just Old Man Squad. And again, just to stress, doing a slideshow here, this is a favorite value play from the middle of each round. It's a nice exercise, really, to isolate decent players separated by roughly a round of pre-rank on Yahoo's third revision, the board that came out on the morning of October the 2nd. We do have two overlaps, and the very first one is the very first round. Anthony Davis, who still sits in the middle of the first round, although he did move up the board a little bit during the last rearrangement. Anthony Davis went from 7 down to 9, now back up to 6, so he's still technically in the middle of the round. What's my thought process on this? Well, I like Anthony Davis's fantasy game. I like that he gives you decent scoring, not magically delicious scoring, but pretty good. Great rebounds, great steals, great blocks, great field goals, solid free throw out of a big man. Some assists, not great. You could potentially punt assists, or you could punt threes if you wanted to go that direction with it. But just a guy who outperforms his ADP. If you can get him in the middle of the first round, you're getting a mid or better first round guy, and then you just have to hope that he stays upright, which I realize is asking a decent amount. Anthony Davis might not stay upright all season long. I have a measure of confidence just based on not last year. I know that this is like, oh, well, last year he figured it out. I actually think that Anthony Davis's injury stuff had always been overblown. A lot of his worst seasons of injury missed games came off of the Lakers' bubble championship run and the condensed off seasons. Anthony Davis is a guy who needed that recovery time. He was playing through a lot of stuff through the deep bubble playoff run. His body was breaking down. And then there was like a month and a half before the next season started. He broke down. Short off season. He broke down. Every time he tried to come back, it wasn't right. Finally got like some full, decent rest under his belt. And we saw this last season that if he comes into a year healthy, he can have put together a pretty good season. I don't know if he's going to make it. We don't know if any of these guys are going to make it. But I have a measure of confidence. That's why I like him in the middle of the first round. This show, by the way, is brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. And think you know your stuff? Good. Get in on BetOnline's $200,000 mega contest. You heard that number right. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at prizes and a share of $200,000. When the games are over, you can go to the online casino over at BetOnline. Play some blackjack, some poker, over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline. The game starts here. Second name on this list is a new one for this iteration, and that is Kevin Durant, whose ADP dropped from 10 to, or pre-rank, I should say, dropped from 10 to 19. And I said it on a show when I was talking about who fell the most. Kevin Durant in the middle of the second round is an unbelievable steal. And I say this not because I think he's like a guaranteed first round per game guy. In fact, you might see his numbers erode a little bit from last year, although I do think the turnovers probably come down, and you could see the free throw percent actually tick back up a tad. I say this because Kevin Durant is good at everything. He's good at scoring. He's good at rebounding. I mean, he's fine at rebounding. He's good at assists for his position. He's pretty good at steals, or call it fine. Good at blocks, good at field goal, good at free throw. Even his threes are fine from a power forward. Like, he just pairs with everybody. So whether you're head-to-head, whether you're roto, like literally no matter who you take in the first round, you can put Kevin Durant with them and you'll be fine. Want to pair him with Luka? Want to pair him with Shea? Great. If you pair him with Shea, you can punt threes. You got an amazing team to build off of. Want to pair him with Luka? You don't have to punt anything. But you literally do all of it. Great. Fantastic pairing. You want to put him with Tyrese Halliburton? Okay. You don't really have to punt anything. Maybe rebounds? Maybe scoring? I don't know. He just fits. That's the beauty of Kevin Durant as a second rounder instead of a first. He is an amazing opportunity in the second round. And if I have a first round pick after like top 3, I'm just going to be praying that he gets back to me. He probably won't. But like, if you have pick 9 now, you suddenly have a chance to get Kevin Durant as your second pick. That's amazing, and I love it. I love it so. The other retread from our last iteration of my perfect draft is Freddie VanVleet. He did move up from late third round to mid third round, but I still want him in the third round. None of that has changed, really. He's opened at 34, went down to 38. He's up to 32 now. I don't care. As long as the first digit in the 2-digit number where he's going is a 3, I'm all aboard the Freddie VanVleet freight train. He was number 17 in 9-cat last year. I don't care that he doesn't score very much because his assists, his threes, his steals, his blocks, his free throw percent are all great. He does it hyper efficiently on just 1.7 turnovers a game. You guys know I love to target assist guys who don't turn the basketball over that much. That's a stat that's linked so tightly, assists and turnovers. But if you grab the few guys who are high assist, low turnover, you often build a punt points team, but you can win 2 categories that don't usually go together. It's a way to build a super efficient ball club. Now, with VanVleet, you're going to take the field goal percent hit, but luckily, we've got Anthony Davis and we've got Kevin Durant on this team, so you're still in fine shape, and we still haven't taken a center yet. I love VanVleet in the third round. You guys know this about me, so I'm not going to spend that much more time on him on today's show. Our 4th round pick is a new one because it was Jalen Williams on the last episode. He's now going in the 3rd on the new board, so I had to switch it up a little bit. And we've got Derrick White as our 4th round selection because, look, he's like Kevin Durant without the points. You guys want to look at their fantasy games and tell me I'm wrong? Kevin Durant scored a dozen more points per game than Derrick White last year, but White beat him by about half a three-pointer, KD by a couple of rebounds, basically the same assists, basically the same steals, basically the same blocks. KD won the field goal percent battle by a little bit. Derrick White won the free throw percent battle by a little bit, which was frankly kind of surprising. They're both, and don't worry about turnovers for this one. Okay, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch there, but they're both across-the-board producers that don't force you into any specific build. If you have Freddie VanVleet and Derrick White in the 3rd and 4th round, you're probably punting points at this juncture, but you've made your comeback in 3-pointers because your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round guys are 2.2, 3.1, and 2.7 last year. So that's the, now if you're looking back at Anthony Davis, you're like, well, the 2 things I'm probably going to be weakest at here are points and threes. Threes, you've course corrected. Assists, you've generally course corrected as you got 5 out of KD, 5 out of White, and 8 out of Freddie VanVleet. You're not going to be top of the board there, but you're not bad anymore. The thing you're still not very good at is scoring, but that's fine. That's the way a lot of our teams go. I think there's actually room for Derrick White improvement over last year. He took 11.5 shots a game, but there's no Porzingis for the first half of the season. And so my assessment then would be, yeah, Tatum and Brown are going to get the lion's share of that stuff, but Derrick White and Drew Holiday are going to get a little bit of it too. Half a shot, 0.7 field goal attempts, whatever it is, just a little bit pushes him a little bit earlier. You know, he might go 3 rank slots sooner. 27 goes to 24 or something like that. But every little bit does add up. And so with the guy who is already as good as Derrick White, adding a little bit more to that can only be a good thing. By the way, we're only going 10 rounds on this because you're not going to go middle of each round on rounds 11, 12, and 13. You're reaching for whoever you want on the board in those ones. I do have some honorable mentions, however, that will take up some time after we pass round 10 on today's episode. Our fifth rounder now is Jarrett Allen, who was not going in the fifth round the last time we did this, but now he is. This one is not a big leaper type. This one's more of a very safe pick. He was number 45 last year, which was slightly inflated by Evan Mobley missing some time. Let's assume Mobley is healthier. Allen's field goal attempts and scoring are the things that probably come back down a little bit. But again, even if you pull a little bit away there, he's still going to be inside the top 60. Decent scoring for a traditional center. Good rebounds. Okay defensive stats. Actually not awful at passing out of the center spot. Excellent percentages again. Great field goal. Solid enough free throw out of the center spot. And again, based on the guys we've already got on this team, like the damage Jarrett Allen is doing with his free throws is minimal. And I just think he's a safe win at this juncture. It's not a big win. Like I think, Freddie VanVleet could actually be a really like a decent sized win. And Anthony Davis is going to be fine. And KD is going to be probably a small win there. And Derrick White could be a sort of a small, medium win. Jarrett Allen's probably about even money, maybe a small win, but just like not going to hurt you. And on this team, I had a center in my first pick. I'll get another one here at 5. Before we get to number 6, who the YouTubers can actually see on their screen, let's take a very brief commercial break. Your 6th rounder is D'Angelo Russell. I had a few guys that I was picking between here. I ended up going D'Lo. I forget what his actual new pre-rank is, but he belongs higher than the 6th round. Last year, he was an early 6th rounder per game after a really bad first 2 months of the season. From the time the Lakers sort of unleashed D'Lo, he was top 50, and there were long stretches where he was top 40. And I don't know that I expect him to go top 40 because he was shooting 46% on kind of high volume with a ton of threes. But like top 50 is actually within reach and top 60 is very attainable. And so again, we're kind of taking a guy relatively, at least in my opinion, closer to his floor than to his ceiling. Or no, that's not what I meant. Like above the floor with ceiling beyond it. That's the right way I wanted to say it. There you go, Dan. You have a working brain. Let's use it on today's show. And so I like D'Lo in the 6th round. I think there's some decent value there. I hate the 7th round. I'll just put that out there. The new Yahoo board, guys ranked between whatever the hell I just said it was. Guys ranked between 73 and 84. Just an absolute dumpster fire of names in there of guys that I don't want, like Simons and Ingram and Sexton too early and Hero and Poole's back up higher again. And so we're left with kind of a mess. We've got Michael Porter Jr. at 82. And so he's my 7th round pick because I think he's probably going to be a 6th rounder in 9-cat. And I get it. That's just not that fun. He's like a poor man's version of Tobias Harris. He's not exciting, but he's an efficient 3-point shooter, which is great to some degree. Like, it's nice to get 3-pointers from a guy who's not going to ruin your field goal percent, and he does that. He doesn't get much in the way of defensive stats, but that's okay because I have AD, Kevin Durant, Freddie VanVleet, Derrick White, Jarrett Allen. All of these guys are piling up defensive stats. Even D'Lo is going to get around a steal a game. So the fact that MPJ's isn't a huge deal. I don't mind, again, that he's low turnover. My team isn't going to have trouble there. They're actually pretty freaking good in turnovers right now. And not awful in assists, considering I have D'Lo, who's decent there. And then, as we mentioned, the first 4 guys are all kind of okay. Porter's not going to help my team in many spots. And I don't really need his scoring because I'm probably in this team, basically, likely punting that particular category. But at the same time, the choices were so bad in this round that I just went with the guy that I thought is going to be sort of fine and not blow up in our face. Round 8, CJ McCollum, who, again, I came in, you guys remember if you listen back in July and August, you know I came into this fantasy draft season saying I want nothing to do with the Pelicans. But then they're throwing CJ McCollum in our laps at pick 94. That just doesn't make sense to me. In my mind, a worst case scenario for McCollum is top 100. It's possible. There's like a 15% chance, 20% chance that happens, but there's like an 80% chance he's better than that. I see almost no pathway, 2, 3, 4% chance that he's worse than top 100. He's still McCollum. He's still going to get some shots up. He's still going to do some ball handling. He's still going to get his little miscellaneous stuff. And you're looking at a guy that's probably going to be in the 75 range this year. I'm surprised. And the reason that I was so down on McCollum before we had a draft board is that I thought he was going to probably go in the 50 to 60 range. And I was like, well, off of last year, he's going to drop past that. I don't really want him there. And here he is, almost 50 damn slots later than I expected. I mean, that was a ridiculous misfire on my side, at least in terms of predicting what his pre-rank and ADP might be. He's way later than I expected. Also surprising, given, Brandon Ingram was still going relatively early, and Zion's still going relatively early, and DeJounte Murray is still going relatively early, and Trey Murphy is moving up the board, while McCollum is falling like a boulder in the ocean. It's too late for him. I had no intention, again, of drafting McCollum this year, but this is too late, so I will take him in the 8th round. 9th round, a new fresh face here is Brook Lopez. This is almost the same story, repeat on McCollum. I had no intention of drafting Brook Lopez this year. I thought after last season's giant win we got on Lopez that the board was going to overcorrect for him because Brook finished at number 46 last season. But everybody, I guess, saw how bad he was once Doc Rivers took over. No, wrong. He came out as like a 70-something pre-rank. I thought, nope, that's you're goading me. They split the difference between where he was during Doc the second half of the year and where he was during Adrian Griffin the first half of the year. And I was like, no, I don't want to split the difference. I'd rather look back at where he was under Doc Rivers. And then all of a sudden, and this just happened earlier today, actually, from when I'm recording this show, he dropped 3 rounds of pre-rank value. That's a wild fall off that you almost never see. 3 rounds in one from like a real name on the board. These guys never move that far. But apparently Brook Lopez moved that far. They're done with him. And now I'm interested in him. Again, I had no intention of drafting Brook Lopez, but now he's going at 107 instead of the early 70s, or at least that's the pre-rank, and I would expect that his ADP starts jetting down in that direction. How can I say no to Brook Lopez after pick 100? This is a guy where if things start to break back his way, if they start to funnel more bodies back to Lopez again, or if he just settles in a way that we didn't see last year, lots of little things can fix where he was. A quarter of a block shot per game moves him 2.5 rounds up the board. So if he blocks, what was he at? He was like 1.6 under Doc Rivers. If that gets back up near 2, he just destroys this pre-rank. And even down in the mid-1s, he probably gets around this pre-rank and isn't really a loss at that point. I hated having to take him in the 70s. I wanted nothing to do with that. But after 100, I'm all about it. And I had a lot of trouble with my 10th rounder because, again, you're getting into this sort of like take a shot zone. But I went Daniel Gafford, who last year was top 40 in 24.5 minutes per game. And I think that gets lost in the shuffle a little bit because there is the expectation that Derek Lively II is going to start for the Mavs this year. And that means he's going to have first crack at the bigger share of a timeshare between he and Gafford. So you're like, all right, is Gafford going to max out at 24 this year? Maybe. But guess what? 24 minutes, he's like top 45. What do I actually think? I think he's going to probably get around 20 to 22, which still puts him inside the top 75. Maybe even higher than that. Daniel Gafford is a fantasy wonderland of a player because he is legitimately one of those guys that just does not need big minutes to go huge on the fantasy side. And we know he's just going to be dunking. He shot 73% this year. That's his whole job next to Luka and Kyrie and now Clay. Maximum floor spacing, and then Lively and Gafford are dunking. That's what's going to happen for the Mavs this season. So I don't even really care that much that Gafford's coming off the bench. I mean, obviously, I'd rather he start, but if he's not gonna, then his ADP and his pre-rank is going to stay pretty freaking late. And so I'll take him in the 10th round because if things do break his direction a little bit, if Lively doesn't take the step forward that we all kind of expect him to take, Gafford could slide into an extra half minute or a minute and a half or whatever that pushes him way farther up the board. And to get to 110, Gafford legitimately only needs like 17 minutes a game, which I think we can all agree he's going to get this year. So this one to me is a pretty easy win, even if it's not a giant win, even if he doesn't get the big minutes, and you're going to feel frustrated because he's playing 19 minutes a game and he's giving you like 8 points and 7 rebounds with a block and a half. And you're like, this is annoying. But at the same time, that actually plays. And I got a whole list of honorable mentions that we'll go through somewhat quickly here because, again, these My Perfect Team shows are meant to only be about 25 minutes long. These are not the long, deep dive ones. This is the, hey, can we build a team from the middle of a draft with guys that are often available in the middle of each round based on Yahoo pre-rank? And we'll see how things shake out for these guys. We'll see if this is where they end up going. But this is where Yahoo's telling novices to take these dudes. So my expectation is that they slide this way. First round, I now kind of like Tyrese Halliburton. He slid down to number 8. He's still not my favorite player in the first round. But again, if we're talking about the middle of the round at 8, he's a pretty good guy to grab, especially if you're thinking about punting points. Jimmy Butler was in my other option in the 4th round. I far prefer Derrick White because I expect him to play a good deal more games than Butler, and they both might end up in the 20s in per game ranking. But if we get angry contract year Jimmy, and again, not everybody cares about their contract season. Butler just sort of feels like the kind of guy that he could end up having a massive, massive year. DeMar DeRozan at 55 was my alternate for the 5th round behind Jarrett Allen. I just think DeRozan's going to be, around 50-ish this year. So again, even money, but a hyper durable dude. He'll find his way in Sacramento just fine. So I think he's a pretty safe mid-5th round pick that you could do if Jarrett Allen wasn't there. Tobias Harris is kind of early 6th round. And so I went D'Lo because I just think D'Lo's more fun to take in that, mid early to late 60, whatever, like 60 something range. Both of those guys, I think, actually have top 45 range appeal this year, but D'Lo gets there with more flash and Tobias gets there with more efficiency. I did not have an alternate in the 7th round because that round is the pits. Actually, I didn't have an alternate in the 2nd or 3rd round here. I probably should have come up with one of those. Austin Reeves was my alternate for the 8th round. He's pre-ranked 96, so he's technically not the middle of that round. But I think if he's really going in the 90s, he's probably going to be an 80s type of guy. So pretty close to even money, but, a little baby win from an efficient dude. You guys know I love my efficient players, so he's my backup in the 8th. My backup in the 9th behind Brook Lopez is Chris Paul, who now has finally slid his pre-rank outside the top 100, and that's where I wanted him to be from the beginning. So it's kind of fun for me now because for 2 Yahoo boards, I didn't think I was going to have anything to do with Chris Paul or Brook Lopez. And now suddenly I think I'm going to have a whole lot to do potentially with both of them. Chris Paul, I think the efficiency years are likely gone for him, but the steals and the assists on the low turnovers are going to be there. And you guys know I love the assist to turnover ratio, guys. When you're punting points is such a great combo because when you punt points, you often leave assists on the table. And guys like Halliburton and Freddie VanVleet and Chris Paul and Mike Conley, who we didn't go that far in today's show, are prime examples of guys who not only do enough in assist to turnover, but do enough in other stuff to actually get those ranking points high enough. And my alternate for the 10th round was Amen Thompson, who, again, I loved in the 12th. I liked a lot in the 11th, and now I still kind of like him in the 10th round. I hate that he's climbing the board. I'm not surprised by it because every analyst on planet Earth is hyping him up, myself included. So we kind of knew he was going to slide forward in one of these Yahoo board readjustments. But he's still an okay guy to take in the 10th. Maybe a little bit more of a starts okay and gets better and better as the year goes, where Daniel Gafford is more of the probably going to just be decent from day 1 to day end with some little ups and downs based on who between he and Derek Lively is playing better. That's going to be the shallower roller coaster, and Thompson's probably going to be more of the very slow ascent. So depending on how you feel about that, maybe that's a direction you go. But again, alternate options from rounds here just in case you can't get the guys that I'm pointing out. And again, this could be the way that you try to construct a team if you have picked between 5 and 9 in your draft. And folks are asking me Dan, can you do a show at each draft slot where you're like, here's the guys that are usually available near your picks for like the first 5 rounds. And I'm like, well, yeah and no. I like the idea, and I think it's important because, if you have Wemby in the first round, you want to know what guys you're often going to be picking from in the second, third, fourth, fifth, that kind of thing. But it's really more of a pocket. So, like, if you have the first, second, or third pick, here's the guys that are usually there between 22, 23, 24, 5, 6, 7. So 22 to 27, that's your window. And then, like, if you have pick 4 through 9 or 5 through 9 or something like that, this is actually a team you could build potentially from that pick slot. How would this team be? I honestly don't even know. Very good in blocks, very efficient, makes some threes, doesn't score much at all. This team's going to win a lot of categories, but it's not going to be scoring. In any event, that's my perfect team on the new Yahoo board. I wanted to get this one out quickly because it's one of my favorite things to do. And frankly, here's the thing, guys. If I do a draft, whether it's mock, real, whatever, and I get 6th pick, I'm probably going to try to build this team. Like, these are guys that I'm just going to look for. So this is not me just blowing smoke. This is like a legitimate chance to have a decent team, and these are possible targets. Thank you for watching, everybody. Happy New Year to my listeners of a Jewish faith. Shana Tova. Today is indeed Rosh Hashanah. I am Dan Vespris for the Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Make sure to check out our listener leagues. We got a form that's circulating on Twitter right now. Again, that's at Dan Vespris or at Old Man Squad. You can find it over there if you want to join a listener league through our good buddies at FBI Basketball, Fantasy Basketball International. They do an amazing job of hosting those listener leagues, and those would get you sort of linked up on that front. Am I forgetting anything else? I don't think so. Just remember to like and subscribe. If you guys have been enjoying this show or all the shows, please drop a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Leave a comment if you have any thoughts on the team, whatever, who other guys you're also looking at in the middle of some rounds. And I'll see you later today. I think we'll probably do a mock draft. I got to get a mock going with this new board out there, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I make up my mind on the fly because I can, because it's my frickin' show. See you later, everybody.